A city falls in 1453. You'd think the story ends there. It doesn't. In 2020, Hagia Sophia, the great cathedral turned mosque turned museum, became a mosque again. Not because of some archaeological discovery or architectural necessity, because the conquest still matters. The man who ordered that reconversion, President Erdogan, quoted Mehmed the Conqueror's words from 1453 when he did it. Constantinople wasn't just a battle lost. It was a door slammed shut, a door that had guarded Europe's eastern flank for 8 centuries. When it broke, the West had no choice but to look toward the Atlantic. What followed was the age of exploration, the rise of maritime empires, the world we still live in. This 1,400-year struggle never ended. It just changed shape, and once you see the thread, you can't unsee it. Before Constantinople fell, it held. For 8 centuries, the Theodosian walls did what no other fortification in history had done. They stopped the caliphate cold. The first real test came in 674. Muawiyah, the Umayyad caliph, sent a fleet to the Bosphorus. His ships blockaded the city for 4 years. The defenders had one advantage they didn't fully understand yet: a liquid fire that burned out water projected from siphons mounted on Byzantine warships. Greek fire, the Arab fleet burned. The siege broke in 678. 40 years later, the caliphate tried again. Maslama ibn Abd al-Malik arrived in 1717 with a force so large the chroniclers struggled to estimate it. Maybe 80,000 men, maybe 120,000. The Arab camp stretched from the walls to the horizon. But Leo III, the Byzantine emperor, had prepared the city for exactly this. The defenders held through the summer, then through autumn. And then winter hit. The Arab army, provisioned for a quick conquest, starved. Men ate their horses, then their dead. By spring 1718, Maslama withdrew what was left of his force. Raymond Ibrahim, in Sword and Scimitar, cites historian John Julius Norwich on what this meant. Had the Saracens captured Constantinople in the 7th century rather than the 15th, all Europe and America might be Muslim today. That's not hyperbole. The city bought the West 800 years, but the psychological effect cut both ways. The caliphates failed. Then the sultanates inherited the obsession. Conquering Constantinople became the ultimate prize, the proof that Islam had finally breached Christendom's eastern gate. By the 1400s, the Ottomans had swallowed the Balkans. The city was a Christian island in an Islamic sea, and the Ottomans had something the Arabs never did: cannons. Spring 1453, Sultan Mehmed II, whom contemporary Europeans simply called Muhammad, surrounded the city with roughly 100,000 fighters. Inside the walls, fewer than 7,000 Christians prepared to defend 15 miles of fortifications. 26 ships in the harbor against 100 Ottoman warships. Niccolo Barbaro, a Venetian physician trapped inside the city, kept a diary. On April 6th, the bombardment began. Cannonballs the size of millstones slammed into walls that had stood since the 5th century. The defenders patched the breaches with rubble, with timber, with anything they could drag into place. They held for 6 weeks. Mehmed called a council of war. His siege had stalled. Some advisors suggested withdrawal. Mehmed decided on the opposite. One final assault, every last man thrown against the walls. But first he needed his army to want it. Ibrahim's chapter on Constantinople in Sword and Scimitar reproduces what happened next. Mehmed addressed his troops with a 2-pronged promise: paradise for those who fell, the Quran's guarantee of gardens and rivers and the black-eyed virgins awaiting martyrs. But Mehmed was pragmatic. He knew that earthly rewards motivate better than heavenly ones, so he swore an oath: 3 days of unrestricted plunder. Everything in the city, treasure, captives, men, women, children, would belong to the soldiers. He himself would claim only the buildings and walls. The response was immediate. From thousands of throats came the cry of Allahu Akbar and the Shahada: there is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is his messenger. One Christian defender behind the walls wrote that if you had heard those voices raised to heaven, you would have been struck dumb with amazement. Church bells rang alarms. The defenders prayed with copious tears. The assault began around 2 a.m. On May 29th, Mehmed's strategy was brutal in its logic. Send wave after wave of fresh troops until the exhausted defenders simply couldn't lift their swords anymore. First came the expendable raiders, irregulars who died in droves at the base of the walls, their bodies piling up while they served their purpose of wearing the defenders down. Then the Anatolian regulars, then the Janissaries, the elite shock troops, abducted as Christian boys, indoctrinated into Islam, trained for nothing but this moment. A minor gate, left open in the chaos, became the breach. An Ottoman flag went up on the wall. The cry spread. The city is ours. Defenders who had held for hours broke and ran. Emperor Constantine XI saw what was happening. An eyewitness recorded that he stripped off his imperial regalia, the purple, the insignia, anything that marked him as emperor, and charged on horseback into the oncoming throng. His sword drawn, blood streaming from his arms and legs, he killed until he was swallowed by the press of men. He was never seen again. The city, founded by Constantine the Great in 325 AD, died with Constantine XI on May 29th, 1453. A Roman state that had lasted 1,128 years ended in a single night. The sack that followed was brutal beyond words, but the real consequence, the one that still shapes your world, had only just begun.